TCMO podcast with Zachary Lui.
Welcome to the Traditional Chinese Medicine Ontario videocast and podcast, a dedicated platform and professional association aimed at empowering and uplifting the TCM and acupuncturist profession in Ontario. We want to extend our sincerest appreciation to Wuji Xuan Life Wellness for their invaluable contributions, providing us with the top-tier equipment, advanced software, and a dedicated space to host the podcast. Wuji Xuan Life Wellness takes pride in its unwavering commitment to supporting the professional development and success of practitioners within the field of traditional Chinese medicine. Hello, I'm your host, Zachary Lui. I'm a board director at the TCMO, a registered acupuncturist, master of medical qigong, and I wear lots and lots of other hats. However, this is a TCM podcast, so we're going to keep it to that. Today with me is John Stan, a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine with over 30 years of experience. He is a founder and co-owner and president of Eastern Currents Limited. This Vancouver-based company is not only a manufacturer of AcuFast needles, but also serves as an importer and national distributor of acupuncture and natural health products. With his extensive background in traditional Chinese medicine and his leadership in Eastern Currents Limited, and his background, especially serving the advisory board to Health Canada on TCM and natural health products, John Stan has played a significant role in both the practice and distribution of acupuncture and related products in Canada. So welcome to the podcast / videocast, John.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So we have an important conversation considering the climate of Canada, right?
We certainly do. Mm-hmm.
So why don't you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get rolling into it more.
Right. So all of us who do practice Chinese medicine, in particularly the herbal part of Chinese medicine, of the 5 pillars of Chinese medicine, we know acupuncture and herbology are significant parts that are practiced by many practitioners here. And so herbal products fall into what's called the natural health product category here in Canada. Previous to 2012, they were just health products with no special designation by Health Canada. And then in 2012, Health Canada started to notice that a lot of these products were on the market, TCM patented formulas, granules, many Western herbs in capsules and bottles and tinctures and so on, all being sold in various health food stores, sold by practitioners. And in Health Canada started to wonder, well, who's running this industry? How is this industry being controlled? And I had to give them a little bit of a fair kind of assessment, saying, yeah, you know, it is true that there are products out there that are not what they say they are. For example, Health Canada would say, well, you have somebody bottling a 1 ounce jar of high quality ginseng, but when we go and look in their facility, they've got a big 20-gallon sort of jug with alcohol in it and 1 tiny ginseng root. And so is that really high quality ginseng? You know, so you had these various layers of quality over time that even us as an importer of Chinese products, Chinese medicine, acupuncture needles, we always had to validate the manufacturer behind the scenes just for our own commitment to quality for our company. But so when Health Canada said, okay, we need to have some oversight, they tried to put the natural health products under the Food and Drug Act. And there was a huge outcry from the industry and from the grassroots public, saying, no, we don't, these are not drugs, they're natural health products. So at that time, Health Canada created this 3rd category, which has been sitting nicely and functioning fairly well. And they basically created conditions under which importers and manufacturers had to demonstrate their quality control processes. They had to license each product that was being used and being sold. And at that time, companies like myself, we were saying, well, we don't sell to the general public, we sell to healthcare practitioners only, TCM practitioners, so we shouldn't be in the same category of just a retail product. And over time, Health Canada kept saying, yeah, we'll come up with some subcategory for professional use products. Well, that never manifested, but that's another story of deep concern for us. But going back to that grassroots revolution, which is kind of what we're needing now, and that's why we're kind of doing this. But back then, there was this big uproar, and healthcare said, okay, we'll create this third category, call it NHPs, natural health products, not as strict as pharmaceuticals, but we do want to have some controls. So companies like ourselves basically had to jump through many hoops, hire professionals to license our products. And as a TCM supplier, as you know, we have a compendium of, say, 500 to 800 single herbs, and then formulas on top of that, where practitioners will combine a single herb with a prepared prepared medicine. So they'll modify that formula for their patients, or they'll have, like, a line of prepared medicines that are formulas that have been based on a traditional formula that's been modified a little bit for sort of the more modern patient, right? Because a formula that was made 100 or 300 or 500 years ago, when people weren't eating refined sugars and they weren't like staying up all night watching TV, where you'd so now that same formula, which dealt with sort of a yin deficiency, we would have more like a little bit more dampness involved too, because of all the sugar people are eating. So these formulas are slightly modified. So they're technically new-ish, but they're based on traditional principles, right? So Health Canada, when they licensed a product, would look at, well, give us your evidence for efficacy. Well, we would have to then go through a lot of hoops and jumps, say, well, this basically is this formula with a slight modification, and then create expert rationale as to why we can claim that it is, a valid herbal formula. Anyway, so a lot of jumping through hoops and a lot of bending over backwards, and a lot of expenditures for many companies that are in our position to try to meet that. So many of us had 1,000 licenses easily. And we were complying to the best of our abilities within this, the financial frameworks that we had. So as time went on, though, we noticed that each application that we sent in had more, sort of a little bit more pressure on, putting more and more cautions and warnings on the labels. And it's like, for example, I was just saying Dongui, which back in 2012, when we had a formula with Dongui in it, we just had to say, use as directed by your practitioner. If symptoms worsen, stop use, talk to your practitioner. I mean, hardly anything else. Do not use if you're pregnant. But now, if you had certain ingredients like cinnamon, or you had Dongui or ginseng or whatever, you had to have a list of other cautions and indications that had to be on the label, which became kind of crazy because you now had like 10 cautions and warnings, which didn't make sense. And in fact, I was getting more and more concerned that this was becoming quite ridiculous. And when we had an open meeting with officials from Health Canada, I said, like, can you provide me with some of the statistics that are listing adverse effects from using Chinese herbs or natural health products that would mitigate us having to put all these warnings on the label? Like, did we have 20 people with serious reactions in hospitalized? Because that's where you start to go, oh, we got to really make sure that what's on the label is on the label, is there for the public protection. And they couldn't give me any. They said, well, no, we really haven't had that many. So somewhere there's a push coming to try to reduce to kind of put pressure on to reduce the availability of these products to us as practitioners, and then as a result to the to the patients who really need the product. So as the formulas came under more scrutiny, it became harder to get the license. They challenged some of the names, even some of the Chinese names that they would challenge, because it would give a false impression of giving energy. Like, so we had one product called Jingqi, and
Right.
they said, that's kind of implying you're going to sort of get an energy boost. Where's your, study to show that it's going to do that? And we were like, well, we just have historical use that says that that's what it is. But so it became more and more difficult. But so we're complying, trying our best. In the meantime, recently, Health Canada moved the natural health product category under another law for pharmaceuticals called Vanessa's Law, which says that it forces anybody who uses the product, like doctors, hospitals, pharmacies, these kinds of places, that if they come across an adverse reaction, they are by law required to submit that to Health Canada. Right now, it's a voluntary thing. If my patient comes back to me and says that I had like a hive outbreak and I threw up after taking the product, they could send that to Health Canada, or we would send that. It's all voluntary. Now it's mandated. And again, we're going like, where's this pressure coming from? Why are we being relegated into this high risk category when really natural health products are a low risk category product?
Right.
And we shouldn't have to go through the same type of scrutiny that a highly refined medicine that does, if you give a milligram more, can cause a cardiac arrest or something to that effect. Whereas ours, you can play with dosage levels quite broadly and not have the serious side effects that you would get. So anyway, what's raised the current concern is, while we're watching this trend of increasing pressure, Health Canada then announced this proposed fees for natural health products to come about in 2025. And they proposed this whole new set of costs to the industry, to the importers, to the license holders, and which currently has been free, which has been sort of a taxpayer cost, which again, considering it's a low risk product, which doesn't cause too much extra costs. In fact, it helps society versus causes a burden on society. Yeah, it shouldn't cost the industry stakeholders like ourselves very much money. We agree maybe a little bit of a administrative fee we're willing to pay, but I'm going to share with you the document that that they sent to the industry here. Oh, it's right here. So the proposed fees, they have given us until July 26th to respond to this, and then they changed that date to August 10th because of the pushback from the industry saying you're not giving us enough time to properly respond to this. But yeah, so basically what they're doing is they're trying to recover the cost for having site licenses. They're trying to recover the costs for pre-market evaluation, which is getting the license, and then they want to get recoup money for allowing companies to sell. So basically, if you look at the fees that they're asking the companies to pay, if I want to license an herbal product, like a single granule product like Renshin or Dongui or Fuling or something, it would cost that much money. If I have a formula that is not conventional, like say it's a mixture of traditional, like a standard formula from the Shanhan Lung, and then modified a little bit with some additional herbs to meet Western sort of lifestyle concerns, then it would cost this much money and take basically almost 2/3 of a year to get a license. And then they also proposed that if you're a site license, which means you're an importer, you have a site license. Right. And that's what the SL stands for, a site license. That's your license to import and distribute. So for us, it's going to cost $20,000 off the bat. And if you're doing any extra labeling, which in some cases, because you're getting product in from, say, China or Taiwan, it has their label on, and you have to put a Canadian label on. So you have to be licensed as a relabeler. So there's an extra fee for that. But the kicker here, and the thing that's going to completely destroy half of our availability of products, is the $542 that they're suggesting for each NHP. So that means for every licensed product that a distributor or an importer has, they will have to pay every year $542 per license. So that means a company that has, say, 500 licenses, it'll be $250,000 a year just to sell that. If you have 1,000 licenses, it'll be $500,000 roughly to sell the products. So that means that now you are small businesses like ourselves, the Chinese medicine niche industry, which relies on all these kind of single herbs to modify our formulas. Half of those will be gone because people can't even afford that. Because the reality with the TCM herb business is maybe 20% of all of the ingredients make 90% of the revenue. And then the remaining 80% are to either covering their costs or maybe even losing money. But manufacturers of TCM products, they actually continue to provide the full spectrum of the pharmacopoeia to practitioners, even though some of them are not making money. But for the practice itself, to preserve the practice, they make that full range. So this is where it gets really complicated. Like if you have 1,000 licenses because you have like maybe 800 single granules and 200 formulas that people can then compound in their clinic, that's nobody's going to be able to afford $500,000 to just sell that, right?
Absolutely. And
crazy.
I think it is crazy on that, because it's like there's a distributor side, but there's also a trickle back on that particular.
Yeah,
so
well,
this is where it is one of these things like, all right, say a distributor can't even afford this. How do you even compensate that? Because it's still a business, even if you have the best will to support everyone in the profession. So at that point, you have to raise prices on the practitioners, who then have to raise prices on the public. So the trickle down is everyone pays for this across the board.
Well, the crazy making part of it is right from the get-go, Health Canada tried to enshrine and protect the rights of the practitioner to compound and dispense formulas that they made to the particular needs of their patient. So this was, we're really protecting the right of the practitioner to do that. So maybe about 8 years ago, there was some question whether the granules, the TCM granules, were to be considered compounding materials or finished natural products. And so we had argued that, no, these are compounding materials. We put a label on it for compounding use only. And they said, nope, it's got a label, it's in a bottle. And so this is a finished product. So you need a license for that single herb. You need a license for that formula. And I'm saying, well, these are not sold over the counter. Well, they said, maybe you could sell that over the counter. Somebody could just put that on a shelf and sell it. And I'm saying, we argue that that's just not what happens, but they argued, how do we know, right? We don't have police officers out there enforcing to see if you're actually doing what you say you're doing. So we're just going to default to the idea that this product is a finished good. If it's bottled, it has a safety wrap on it, then it's a finished good. So then we got stuck in this sort of mayhem of trying to license every product, which then had special label requirements, which caused kickback from the manufacturers and saying, well, in Canada here, we need this label, and they would say, well, in order for us to change our labels, you'd have to order like 5,000 of them, right? Which we don't want to do, right? No. So it caused a lot of problems. And what's crazy is that because of these extra fees, a compounding practitioner is going to like lose half of their ability to access half of those ingredients because they don't make money, and so they are restricting the right of practitioners to practice, and they are sort of like causing a negative effect on patients who would otherwise benefit if they had access to the full spectrum of natural ingredients that we use, right? So it's a serious concern, and I think that we have to push back because we don't want to be pushed under the refined drug kind of rules. We're a natural product supplier. Our products are multi-ingredient, non-refined substances. Maybe they're concentrated a little bit, but they're not standardized extracts where we're just pulling out an active ingredient. These are like polyorganic compounds, and they the body uses what it needs from that. It's and that's kind of like a low risk product. We have to keep on kind of emphasizing that there's no deaths being caused by this. Whereas in Tylenol or Western medicine, it's expected that you would have a death every million people, that somebody's going to like have an adverse effect from it. Health products, we don't see that. So why are we being putting under the same scrutiny and pressure? So we have to stand up and say, one, I want to have access to all my normal range of single ingredients and formulas that allows me to do my practice. And practitioners need to then agitate their patients to say, you need to act on this too, because otherwise I may not in the future be able to supply you with the products you need. So we do have to stir up our chi, and we do have to have our voice being heard. And it's only in the numbers that will then cause Health Canada to reconsider it. And so this is why you're asking me to speak here today. It's really important.
Absolutely.
I'm really happy to do that, because I want to stress to all of you that while we're trying to, most of us who practice acupuncture are a little bit of a Taoist in the sense we go with the flow, we try to navigate change. But at some point, there is a time when we have to then act to resist that change, which is going to push us into a very confined state, which is not where Chinese medicine lives.
Well, remember, John, that the Art of War is technically a Taoist text, and Daoism does really push not just being in the external flow, but being in your own flow. Right. So this is where this does have a major impact across the board. I know we've been talking about the practitioner side, which we'll go back to. However, this is where I'm just thinking about even other like herbal stores. Like people walk into those all the time, and they may buy a natural health product there. Those are out the window. And there's a lot of businesses that are going to be threatened from this, not just from a practitioner standard of the availability, but what about the grassroots like families that have run herbal shops consistently, or what about apothecaries and things like that?
Exactly. So the medium to small businesses will be impacted, but you have to sort of remember that if the product is in its raw form and not packaged in a sellable form, so like for example, in a Chinese apothecary where they have all their herbs in a drawer, they're still going to be able to bring those in, and they won't be charged on those. They don't have to have a license for them. And they're basically allowing that sort of part of it to be untouched. But it will, for the TCM herbal prepared medicines that are the tea pills and the tab and the one and the all those variations of prepared medicines, those will be impacted.
Right. So prepared. So let's break that down a little bit. So prepared in this context, I understand the wands, I understand the tongs, all those things, right? But what does that mean in terms of like teas like that?
That's fine.
That's fair game. So as long as it's in raw form in a package and it's not prescriptive, that would be fair game.
Right. So for example, if somebody took some of the raw herbs, ground them up, and put them into tea bags and sold them as tea bags with a name that was not kind of like a therapeutic good, but just something for health and wellness, whatever. That's fine.
Whatever
but
it is.
the moment it's packaged and sealed, it's in a capsule, ground up and put in a capsule, now it's a natural health product.
Right. So that takes the cake, because how many people do raw stuff now, right? So this is where that is a big threat to a lot of practitioners across the board, and that from the NHP standard, that would be a threat to many allied professions too. When you think about
it's going to be huge. You think about Western apothecaries, which they make tinctures. They'll use nettle and tinctures of dandelion and so on, and then they mix those tinctures to make their tincture cut that the patient will take. All of those single ingredients, because there's hundreds of those too.
Right, there is.
Yeah, essential oils, all those things will be challenged.
Yeah, so that is that's a whole swath of the health profession right out having this overhanging threat, right? And that's not a lot of time we have to at least get the votes in and start saying in those letters.
Yeah, and that's why the Canadian Health Food Association is marshalling its campaign, and they're engaging all the health food stores that are members of the Canadian Health Food Association to get their customers to send in postcards, to send in letters to the health minister, to contact their local MP and express their concerns about that, and also to submit to Health Canada your own personal opinions. So I'm going to share my screen again, and for all of you out there. So if you go to the website where it says proposed fees for natural health product, there should be an opportunity for you to, where is it? There should be an opportunity for you to submit your response. Let me just Google it. Cost recovery, NHP, see if it's here. No, actually, I don't know where it is. Let me see here. No, I thought I had it in my. By the way, if you want an easy kind of like kit of things to do, this I made an article. I wrote an article that's kind of resting on our website. You can just go to Eastern Currents under practitioner news, and there's this call to action article that I wrote. It gives you the background of everything, what happened here, and then you can gives you sort of here's what to do. And so here's this is what I was looking for. So reply to the NHPD. They have a feedback form here that so you can use this online form, and who can use it is consumers, interested members of the public, and natural health product stakeholders. As a TCM practitioner, you're a natural health product stakeholder, and so you can write them and you can send a letter to them here. But an easier way is just to actually use the online form, and you can just then just start putting in your data. Like they ask you a few questions here about personal information and so on and so forth, whether you want your name there or not. These are you just start going through the questions, and you can't progress unless you actually choose something. I would like my name used. I would only blah blah blah. So, but anyway, this is the link is there for you to find that. And then I also created a bunch of easy to modify letters that you could write to the health minister. You could, so this one here is for your patients to write to the health minister, and this one is for a practitioner to write to their health minister. So basically, in there, I list all the concerns that we as a practitioner would have about losing our product and so on and so forth. And from the patient's point of view, it's basically a letter saying like, I don't want my practitioner to lose their products. I rely on them. And I ask you to like reconsider the proposed costs. And then if you do have an opportunity to go to to meet up with an MP, which I would strongly recommend you do, go to the MP. I'm going to just open this document up here, and I'll show you what it contains. So what I did here was I created a cheat sheet for you. When you do go to see a practitioner, you request a meeting, print this out so you can then sort of use it as a guide for what to say, introduce yourself, tell them how you use your products in your clinic, emphasize that the NHPD is omitting the fact that you are a professional and you dispense your products directly to patients. You don't have any, they don't have any category for that. And we need to actually push for that, because that's where we mitigate the risk to the patient. Is like, I'm in my professional capacity recommending this to you. So I don't have to list 30 different cautions and indications and warnings, because I've already assessed that this is safe for you, right? We need that for our profession. And then it just sort of takes you step by step, you know, what to say to the MP, and then let the MP, you know, stress that, tell the MP to talk to the health minister when they're in session together, and then just print out this bottom part here and leave it with your MP so that he has something to kind of refer to, who you were and the things you talked about. So it's a kind of an easy to use sheet for you to kind of work with your local MP, because you should be talking to your local MP about this.
You should.
Yeah. And then the letter that we have for the practitioners to send to the health minister. I'll just quickly show you that. Here you would just, so the letter again, you just modify, this is the content of the letter, but I put some things in green here that you could modify it according to your own letterhead. So you put your letterhead here, you state who you are, you know, how many clinicians you have in the clinic, how many patients you generally treat, and then just it lists all the concerns that you would have regarding access to the products, right? So so I'm a proud Canadian citizen. I'm a licensed healthcare practitioner. As part of my services, I use a wide variety of natural healthcare products. And if you do compounding, and you should mention it there, like you can, this is made in a Word document, so you can modify it for your own needs, right? So I tried to make this as simple and as easy for everybody to do, but just modify the letters or write your own letters if you want to. But I kind of wanted to give you some background.
Right. And definitely appreciate you putting the time into it, because as practitioners, we're busy too, right? So, but this is where it's like the simplest things are the most important things. It seems like, oh, we don't need to do this. You do need to do this. It makes a big difference to everyone in the profession and even in the allied professions. This is about getting the word out there, because this essentially, I mean, it's a crisis point, and it does change the face of Canadian healthcare across the board, for not just yourself as a practitioner, but for the public as a whole. Because I know there's lots of people that are just used to just going to natural health food stores and saying, hey, this is what I want to get. And they've done their own research. Now this is going to be denied them that opportunity to make their own choices. Right. So this is where it goes right down to the individual level. So, you know, get your friends involved, get your families involved, everyone.
Yeah. Well, it's a push. to create fear around natural health products. So this is the kind of the new tactic that's being played out, that regulators are saying, what if the product really doesn't work? So you have stomach pain and you get your ginger compound and you take it, and you take it for 4 days and still you get the pain, and then you go to the hospital and you've got a bleeding ulcer, and because you used a natural health product, you missed out on proper medical care. So this failure to work, or failure to have the effect, they're kind of creating this additional worry in the public mind. And we as professionals have to push back and say, no, these products generally work. There may be, and most of them aren't used for serious like bleeding incidents or things like that. Like you wouldn't use Sanchi on a product with a person who's got like a, hemorrhaging somewhere, that, thinking that that's going to help. But if they have, menorrhagia and their, patient is like, got a slow loss of blood, then yeah, Sanchi works perfectly, right? So we have to push back and say, no, these are not dangerous. They do work. And even though we don't have 2,000 studies to prove that they work, we've got 2,000 years of experience to say that they do have an effect and they are positive.
Well, and it is almost comparing apples to oranges on this, because it's very much the idea is like, well, it doesn't work for this extreme context, but the context, as we know in Chinese medicine, makes the difference for everything. So you may not use certain herbs for certain things, but you would still diagnose it ahead of time to say this is appropriate, this isn't appropriate. Right. And that's where the practitioner does come in, step in and say, in their professional opinion, this is what would be recommended of their use of schooling, experience, on top of all the information we have from the 2,000 years.
Well, it's versus you're using the shotgun approach from the disease model, or you're using like this pattern differentiation, looking at health optimization. So we are, like you say, apples and oranges, and we need to kind of say that within our field, these relatively safe, and of course we do have a third category of our NHPs that are a little bit more risky to use. They have more cautions, they have a little bit more side effects, but used by professionals, they are safe. And if the bao zhi around it, like if they, when they cook the hushawu or they cook the food soup, prepared properly, it's not dangerous, in the appropriate doses. So we want to have access to all of those ingredients, and that's the cause of concern. That should be the rallying call. Protect our right to choose the kind of healthcare we want. I'm fighting now to protect our right to preserve my right to use natural and non-invasive methods for health and wellness. If I don't fight now, then I'm just going to be treated like a machine that only gets medicines for certain conditions, and I'll have invasive medicines basically. So one of the rights as a Canadian citizen under the Charter of Rights, we have the right of, I think Section 7 of the right to live life and liberty and live safely in our society. And so it is our right to choose the type of healthcare we want, and we need to protect that.
Absolutely. So is there anything else you'd like to end off on, John, in terms of information? We're going to post all the links in the description. So
okay, perfect. Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much it. I'm trying to find a middle of the road type of solution. I'm not too much left or too much right. I mean, maybe we as an industry do need to pay a little bit, but I was thinking like $20, $25 for every license we carry, just the administrative fee for some government employee to say, check, yes, they can sell it in 2024, 2025, right? I mean, it doesn't cost them a lot of money to just automate whether the license is active or inactive, right? So small fees to just cover some administrative costs, okay, I'm willing to agree to that. So if you're responding to Health Canada, you can respond, and the more detailed you can be about the numbers, say, for example, if you say, my practice uses 400 single ingredients, or I am able to access from my supplier up to 400 single natural ingredients, and all up to 200 or 300 compounded materials that then I mix myself. Under these proposed fees, I am told that half of those would not be made available to me due to these costs. And thus, my right to practice compounding in my clinic for the benefit of my patient is being severely compromised. So the more specific you can say, or you can say the cost to me will be increased, which would mean this low-cost, affordable medicine is now being forced to undergo these huge increases in costs that the patient will have to bear, which will make it very limiting for the patient to be able to use these medicines, which in reality are low-cost medicines by their nature. No company had to spend huge monies to put that in a capsule, right? They're not costly medicines, so they are affordable, especially with the opioid crisis and the healthcare crisis that we're in, with the lack of doctors, lack of hospital space.
Yes.
We natural healthcare practitioners really are the buffer to keep everything from going into chaos. And if we don't have our medicines, it's even worse.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm just saying, get out there and act.
Get out there and act, everyone. So we're going to post in the descriptions below in the YouTube for that. I know TCMO also has a Canva/IG that you can spread on social media. So that's all templated for you there. But get the word out there. We got a little bit of time, but we've done this before. We'll do it again.
Yeah. Okay.
So with that, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll talk soon in our next episode. Have a great night.